Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, when you're pushed to the brink, everyone's got their limits, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming you do, because you're listening right now, you can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast 1 for all sorts of updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of basically the moving image, film, TV, film festivals. It's all good because we love to write about it and talk about it, and we love it when you come by and read about it. So please stop on by. On this episode, we got an interesting one. We're diving into some more video on demand. We're diving into some Australian film. It's a new one called The Flood, and it is on VOD platforms today. It's a story set during World War II, and it's a coming of age story of a young woman in during a brutal and kind of lawless time. And just it's a story of how bigoted and corrupt the Australian system was towards its indigenous people. And it's hard to watch, but it's important to watch too. It's very much, it almost feels like a bit of a Western even, but this young woman is pushed to her brink by the racist landowners and her and it's she takes her pound of flesh. She takes her revenge, and it's a compelling story, but it's an important story. And we got the unique pleasure of sitting down to talk about this film with writer-director Victoria McIntyre and its star Shaka Cook, about just sort of the origins of the story, the importance of telling a story like this with a very hard edge, because there are some brutal moments in the film, I will tell you that, but they're vital to the story as well. And just, keeping the energy up on a film like this and being able to put it out there for the world to see and sort of the world to understand how cruel we can be, and how that is kind of shared, but also how we need to not be that way, and just sort of understand and learn from our mistakes of the past. It's a really well done film, which, like I said, is on video on demand platforms now. But enjoy our talk with Victoria and Shaka, because between you and me, it's a good one. All right, well, Victoria, Shaka, thank you so much for the time today, and congratulations on the film. I literally just finished it, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, man, thanks.
Oh.
Thank you.
Now, I
They're
guess
paying you to say that?
not really, maybe a little bit, but not enough. But I'm being honest. I genuinely enjoyed the film. I mean, it's brutal, but it's got a heart to it at the same time. I'm really kind of curious, Victoria, I guess, walk me through the origin of, I mean, obviously not just this story, but telling the specific story, because obviously there's a real emotional story inside sort of this brutality that we're seeing on screen.
Well, I guess for me as a filmmaker, I love the juxtaposition of that the heart that exists almost in the same moment of the brutality, and that sort of comes about in the locations and the setting of the film too, that we're in this absolute paradise as humans, yet we perpetrate the most horrendous abuses on each other. And I'm interested in why we do that and how we can overcome that. And really, that's what this film's about, but looking at it through the lens of our nation's own history, which is from the time of invasion, colonization, and then the whole First Nations people's response to that, which we've never really in this country looked at in the light of truth. And so all of those things wrapped up form, I guess, where the film's coming from.
Now, I mean, Shaka, for you, like, walk me through sort of seeing this script for the first time, because you play such an interesting character. Like, because I mean, obviously on one half of the movie you're the primary, you're the guy they're chasing, but really as things evolve you almost take more of a support role. And I mean, it's really sort of an interesting dynamic of a character that you play. Like, walk me through, I guess, reading the script for the first time and what you thought.
Reading the script for the first time, man, it was like straight away I knew I wanted to do this film. Because the story, like you said, it has a lot of heart and it's brutal. And as Vic was saying, Australia's history is exactly that. It's very brutal, but today you can see like the heart that people have for each other, the love that we have. And I just wanted to, do this film because like the biggest thing for me was reconciliation. Like, this is our history. We need to acknowledge it. We need to accept it. But we need to find a way to be better today and move forward. And I think this film really shows that with a lot of the characters and their journey. The character that I play, his journey, how he was used to fighting battles and going to war and facing it head on, and you see him go through a change where he realizes we need to do better.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, I knew of the stories and I knew a little bit of the history, but being a white guy in North America, I didn't realize how recent it still was. I mean, I'm kind of curious for both of you, how important was it to sort of really hammer home and sort of give it that bluntness that we're not that far removed from stories like this in Australia?
Growing up as a First Nation, you at a very young age how recent it actually is, because you see it firsthand. Through my grandparents, through my parents, I've listened to their stories, and it's so recent. Everything that has happened is it's still happening today as well. And so very, very so very important to tell stories like this and be brutally honest with it, because a lot of people in Australia still don't know.
And Victoria, for you, how important? Just not just the blunt edge of the, just giving it sort of that heavy tone and the bluntness that I really found so powerful. But having this be a female-led film and not being sort of a male sort of revenge thriller, but really a female-driven revenge thriller in many ways.
Yeah, I think that's actually quite a point of difference. Look, I don't want to be all male and female about things, but to generalize, I suppose I would say that women are more inclined to dig a little deeper into the underlying sort of emotional situation that's creating the events. And so that's what this film does. It looks at that underlying emotional situation in a very subtle way, but still in a way that's profound, and that brings that difference to the action elements of the genre, and particularly with the action scenes. I think you can feel the female sort of driven nature of them, in that they're kind of beautiful. It's almost like a dance, and you can feel there's room to actually feel within the space of the action, which I love action, but I like to be able to have those moments to let it mean something, rather than just, action. And that's what I think we've achieved. And also particularly because working with Shaka and so many First Nations people, particularly the elders who are involved in creating this film with us. And let me tell you, they were pushing, go harder, go harder, go harder. And I would always defer to them, except a couple of times that they were even pushing so hard. Even I was going, guys, I don't think we can go that hard, just and have people still be able to watch the film. So, but it's finding that space and those moments of contemplation and feeling within the power and the action of the story that I think is something women can bring to the genre in a different kind of way.
Now, Victoria, how did you manage to keep the energy going? Because I mean, obviously there is this very sort of
dark foreboding undertone that goes through it all. But then all of a sudden we would see Shaka like crack a smile, or somebody would do something, would be just enough levity to sort of lift it a little bit, so we're not getting too dragged down. How did you sort of manage to maintain the right tone throughout? Because like you said, if you had gone too brutal, people would have tuned out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we walk that line anyway. I mean, there are a couple of scenes, and I don't want to blow it for anyone who's going to watch it after seeing the interview, but there are a couple of scenes that are pretty like, it's hard to watch. But yeah, I think we did find that lightness as well that can carry you through that. And there's always that promise of hope, of opening, of love, of connection that just comes in. And I think you kind of go, all right, they're going to take me through this into some other space. And that's what we want. I mean, really, this is a model for reconciliation for us. Well, that's why I wanted to tell this story, because I feel like it's what our country needs, to look at the truth, to own the truth together, feel what we need to feel, and then we can move forward. And how we move forward is going to be determined by how much trust and connection and willingness to be honest that we have.
No, and I mean, I think you're absolutely right, because I mean, at the core of it, which I mean, at least for me, was the message for the film, it was that these First Nation people, like, we're people. At the end of the day, we're all people, and people need to treat each other like people. And I mean, we've had similar problems here in Canada with how we've treated our First Nations people in the past. And I'm curious, Shaka, from your perspective, how important was it just to have that core sort of humanity in the character, just to really it be not necessarily about telling a story about sort of the history of First Nations people, but telling a story about people and how they've been mistreated?
Yeah, it's so important. Every job I approach, I try to approach it from that angle, to always come in and be like, okay, this character is a human, and how do I find the humanity, and particularly with this film, you see it through every character. Like Seamus, for example, his character goes through a massive transformation, and you see that he's only human, and everything that he's gone through has made him who he is. And then he has to fight himself to actually, because his heart is telling him, no, you actually want something more, something better. And that's his humanity coming through. And you see it by the end of the film. So yeah, it's so important to be able to, find the truth of humanity and be together as one. And Warrell, the character I play, you see him really understand what that is when he starts speaking about forgiveness and not going out for revenge and creating this cycle, and that we all should just be one. We're living together. We should live together. Very important.
How do you? Because I mean, it's. I love that it's such a character-driven piece, and I'm kind of curious just how you maintain sort of that headspace, especially during a shoot like this, because I can imagine after a long day shooting these heavy scenes of violence and brutality, it can wear on you a little bit. Like, how did you, Shaka, sort of manage to, like, not only have the right energy at the right time, but know how to turn it off when you were sort of going home for the night?
Yeah, a lot of it came down to, a lot of my training to be able to just leave a character where it needs to be and walk away and just, be okay with like splitting the difference between you and the character.
Right.
And also, my personal life growing up, knowing all of these stories, you understand just how it is. And even today, the struggles and difficulties that we face, it builds up your character. It makes you stronger once you get through it. And another great thing was, the cast and crew. Phenomenal. We became like family. Made a lot of great friends during this shoot, and we were always there for one another, even on set and off set. And I think that made it easy for a lot of people, because a lot of the characters that the actors that played the gang members, doing some of the scenes they had to do were pretty intense. And these guys are very kind, loving, caring people, and them having to do something so dark and completely against who they are as a human being, we were all there for one another to get through those moments. And everyone walked away like that. There were heaps of moments where we all came together, as a group of people, especially during the massacre scenes. And I think that's what made it, gave us that hope to get through it, and gave us the strength to be able to actually tell these stories and these scenes and do it truthfully, but not lose ourselves in it.
No, that makes absolute sense. And I mean, I think credit on that goes to Victoria just for leading that ship and being able to sort of tell this story in such an effective way. Because I mean, I've got to imagine, Victoria, for you, you're definitely carrying a little bit of weight when you're telling a story like this because you want to do it justice and you want everything to sort of be proper and done the right way. I've got to imagine sort of for you, especially as the director leading the ship, like there must have been pressure just to not just get it done but get it done right and make sure everyone had a positive experience by the end of the film.
It's interesting. I didn't feel the pressure to get it right because there was no possible way that we could not get it right.
Right.
Because we weren't going to stop until it was right, until we felt like this feels right. So there was a million pressures. Like the pressure was intense when you're trying to make a film of this. Like this is kind of an epic film. It has that huge feel, right? We had 5 weeks to shoot it. We had the smallest budget you could possibly imagine. Every day was a massive challenge in these remote locations, but it's so beautiful because we did what it took to get out there and do it. I mean, in every way, the pressure was intense, but I would refuse to let anyone push us on until we had what was right. So what we felt was right anyway.
And you know,
and by we, I mean the actors and me.
Totally. And I mean, that's the core of artistry and that's the core of storytelling. And I think that really comes through in the film. Now, I mean, just to shift gears a little bit, and this is a silly question, but it's always something I like to ask. Like for both of you, like think back to your younger days. And I mean, I'm dying to know, was there a moment or was there a movie in your life that was sort of the linchpin that where the light bulb went off and went, okay, I want to be in this business. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be a like I want to be an actor.
Mine's so cliched. It's just borderline embarrassing. But of course, it was Star Wars.
There's no shame in that.
I'm not ashamed of Star Wars. I love it. I'm just ashamed that it's, like probably people of my era, most of them would say the same thing. Like, I sat in those little Hessian seats in a far north Queensland cinema back in 1979, and I was a little kid, but when that came on, it was like instant. Just the music and the title alone, that was it. I was gone. This is all I can do.
Right.
Everything else is just pedaling to be able to do that.
Yeah, I didn't have a moment in my childhood. It wasn't until I left high school and left home to study. I did a 1-year course that focused on acting, dancing, and singing, but acting was like the primary focus. And it wasn't until we were doing film, like just screening tests, what we look like on camera and on the screen. And my friends was like, "Yo, bro, you look good, man. You should probably do this." And it was at that point where I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And yeah, finished off my studies and went out into the world, and Vic gave me a chance to be a part of this film, which I'm grateful for. Vic, you're awesome. And it was worth it, man. Like, yeah, it was just a moment where my friends were like, "Yo, you should try this out." And so I did.
I love that.
I fell into it and I love it.
Well, you know what? No one has a straight line into this business. And I mean, I think that's kind of the magic of it, to be honest, because there's so many walks of life all sort of come together to tell stories and do this stuff. And I mean, I really think, just going back to the film, it's one of those things where people can see it, and no matter where you are, you're going to pull something from it, because there is such a universality to it. If you're American, you're Canadian, you're whatever, it's not an Australian story. It's a story about human beings. And I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to see. And I'm curious for both of you, because especially in this day and age, we live in such a world where, people from Canada can see films from Australia. People from, Paris can see films from somewhere else. Like is like the market is now global. How important is it, do you think, to have this story out there in the global market right now?
Well, I think you're totally right, Dave. It's a universal story, and as much as it is the story of our nation,
Yeah,
it is a character driven universal human experience.
for sure.
It's a microcosm of the world we live in, because humans are fundamentally human, and
Yeah.
I
For
think
better
the
or for
world's
worse,
in
but
the state. For better or for worse? Well, for better, because we can draw on stories from other lands
yeah,
that pertain directly to us, but are somehow easier to digest when it's not right in your face.
that's true.
Like, this
Yeah,
film's easier for non-Australians to digest,
for
Mm.
sure.
you know? It's, well, without a doubt, and vice versa. So it's a way we can plant those seeds for each other. And I think if we took the lessons from films like this, or the messages from films like this, and applied it to the world we live in, then the world wouldn't be in the state it's in. So we all just keep chugging away, making these sort of artworks in the hope that things might grow from there.
Yeah, it is so important for this story to get out there, and it's amazing that people around the world can see this film and get a glimpse of what Australia's history is, but then be able to relate to the humanity of this story. And in the end, every culture in the world has storytelling. It's one of the most common things that we all have, that teaches us everything that we need to know about life, and what life is like on this earth.
No, you're absolutely right. I don't think I could have said it better. And I mean, I look forward to people getting to see the flood and talk about it and just have it sort of seep into, their minds, which is, really what the point of any sort of artistic endeavor is all about. And I just want to say, Victoria, Shaka, thank you for the time and thank you for the work. Keep it up. Go get yourselves another cup of coffee. And just again, thank you for the time.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Dave, thank you so much. It's really fantastic that people are interested to give us and the film the time to look at. And although we've talked a lot about, the history and all of those, the brutal elements, it's also lyrical and poetic
Absolutely.
and beautiful.
Absolutely.
And the music and the vision and the spirit that's infused through it. I mean, there's so much going on. So I really hope people take that as well.
Oh no, I think you're absolutely right. There are so many positives to pull out of this film, as well as some of the more negative aspects as well. But I mean, again, it's such a truthful piece of work that you can't help but pay attention to it and notice it. And I think you guys have done, again, a fantastic job. And thank you for the time again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.